Welcome to Horrifically Well Read, Bled, and Said, a podcast for insightfully unhinged
and surprisingly therapeutic conversations with all members of the horror community,
including indie and mainstream authors,
influencers,
fellow podcasters,
librarians,
professors,
and therapists.
What kinds of things do we talk about?
Horror as an allegory of society, from brandishing someone who loves horror as a disturbed human being,
to real-life human horrors like systemic racism on Cape Cod and mass incarceration,
the impact of horror on a family, from the happy family traditions,
and also the traumatic experiences,
the ever-present shadow of organized religious trauma,
the ways horror is a formative influence on our lives at different stages,
horror as a catalyst for acceptance and community,
as well as an ever-present source of comfort.
In between all of that are lots of asides, digressions, and stuff you didn't know we'd cover, but you are glad that we did.
You'll feel like you just sat yapping with close friends about your favorite topics.
And shit. Welcome back to Horrifically Well Read, Bled, and Said. And today I am so pleased to share with you that we have not only a powerful writer in the house, one that seems to come up in every single session that we talk about as someone that is a first book that they hand out when they're trying to get other people to read horror, but magnificent in her own right. We have Rachel Harrison here today, and we are so pleased to be talking about her new book coming out and getting into all things female rage and not playing nice. And welcome, Rachel, to the show.
I love being a gateway drug. I love that people are like, oh, you want to get into horror? Try this.
I can't tell you the number of people that have said it.
Well, I think it's funny because your backlist and like your work is sort of like you are the cigarettes, the marijuana, and the heroin all rolled into one. Depends on which book that
La cocaña y la heroína.
Listen, I'm a slippery slope.
And I think,
you know what you need? Have a little Rachel Harrison.
Yeah,
and a little Rachel Harrison.
It's interesting because you started with straight cocaine, I think, with The Return. That is some serious horror. So, and then I think all of your work is horror, and we're going to talk about that.
And then Cackle, we're like, let's do a little indica. Let's get into couch.
Yeah,
let's
so
get cozy.
One of the things that
horror.
we definitely want to get into is sort of the labels that are put on different writers and
Adam, we're starting right away with this.
And how it seems to be that female writers, or writers that are not fit the white male sort of dominant thing, sort of have these different labels that are placed on their horror. And like, we're here to say, like, you write fucking horror. It's good ass horror, period. And Rebecca's in the middle of Play Nice, so we'll try to like stop some spoilers, but I think she's like 30 or 40 pages in, and she's like,
first of all, rude. No,
you were 30 or 40 pages in, and you turned to me and you're like, wait, is this like really fucking scary? Because this seems really fucking scary that I'm reading.
It is.
And I was like, it is very scary.
And then I paused again and I was like, why do I feel like she's at like a new level of writing in this book?
Yeah.
Like, Rachel, I do not ever sit and first of all, Adam has marked up this book, which if it was like me to go first, he'd be like, why the hell did you mark up this book? I'd be in trouble.
Couldn't not do it.
Okay. But I hear you. Like I'm vindicating what you're saying because I start reading and I'm like, I got to get a pen out here. Like I got my little Play Nice pink pen out and I just start like mocking it up because there's so many lines that I'm just like, wow, that is fucking brilliant. That is so good. And I've never done that to a book before. Like I don't tab anything or whatever. Like I'm having such a fun time with it.
That's the best. That's the feedback I want, is that it's fun.
Oh, it's fun. And it's crazy as hell.
Yeah. Yep. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to start discourse on Threads the other day, but I did. I think it's interesting because the point that I was raising, which I think maybe got a little bit lost, was to just think their words have a lot of power, and we forget. I'm guilty of it too. If you call everything awesome, things are no longer awesome. You know what I mean? Like nothing is awesome anymore. So
Sure.
I think I have been doing this this is my 6th book, and I always try and give people the benefit of the doubt and kind of like never want to tell people how to, like, once you release your work into the world, it's no longer yours. I can't tell people how they feel about it, what they should call it. That's not my place. But you notice patterns over time. And I think at this point in my life and in my career, I feel like it's necessary to sort of raise my hand and be like,
Hmm.
we have to be careful about how we talk about people's work. And this is just what I notice for myself and what kind of gets under my skin, and how certain language can
It
be
underscores,
harmful.
like
Yeah.
it takes it tries to modify or like
Thing, yeah.
compartmentalize. Like even on the front of your book, the blurb, Harrison's feminist horror novels. It's like, why?
Yeah. And it sucks because like it's a great, I'm not
marketing.
going to call it out, but like
Yeah.
it's a great, like I'm honored to have even been mentioned there. But again, it's just doing some subconscious work that I think we all need to be conscious of. And even in, it's a little bit less in like on like Bookstagram and things like that. And that's very personal to people and they can say whatever they want. But, I do notice patterns of like, it can feel frustrating sometime if you are somebody who puts a lot of work into your craft to have it called like cute or little or like labels like that. So, and it's hard because it pisses me off, but like I
Sure.
try not to come the other day when I posted about it, I was trying not to come from a place of rage. I was trying to come from a place of like, I just want to like put this on people's radar because I think a lot of people feel it, but don't feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah.
And if we don't start the conversation, things are never going to change. But
Well, sure.
I think unfortunately it's sort of shifted into like something like read more women in horror and read more diverse voices, obviously. Like, yeah, we need to be doing that, but we also need to be careful about how we speak about those voices
Mhm.
because it can be a burden on people to feel like time after time they're not being taken seriously.
Yeah, and I
It
think
breaks you
that when
down after a while.
yeah, and I think, and I kind of made a post after this.
Yeah,
And
Adam channeled rage.
well,
No,
here's the
but
thing.
you have been like you've been frustrated about this for some
Yeah.
time. Like, yeah, I think you
So-
started your whole Haunted Bookstagram one just originally trying to be a proponent for women writers.
Well, okay. So I don't know if it like, and that's the kind of goes to what you're saying here. Like, I started getting back into, like, I was always a reader, but I really started reading again at the end of 2023. And your books were some of the first ones that I found, thanks to Stephanie and Books in the Freezer and things. And just as I did all of my reading and finding the things that I loved, I did notice that a lot of the best horror was being written by women. And that's just something that I just noticed. And, so as I'm posting like my favorite books and, talking about things, like that just naturally is what's coming. And I think that like part of like the discourse of what we're talking about here is that when you see the most disturbing books, the best horror books of the year, that kind of stuff, it's a given or it's understood that those are going to be dominated by white men, right? And
Yes.
then to have like your books or even like CJ or Liz or independent voices, it's like those are relegated to the best horror books by women or horror books by women you need to read now. And even after your Threads post, I felt like I suddenly saw all of these white male bookstagrammers come out with these lists of these books by women that you should read right now. And so like my response was like I don't hate on that you did that. Okay. Like you recognized this discourse was happening and you said, okay, I'm going to post something about it. But next week, you're going to be talking about Stephen King again. And next month, you're going to be talking about Stephen King again. And at the end of the year, your top 10 list is going to be 8, 9, 10 men. And you won't even think twice about it. It's like, I'm like,
Well, it's like Rachel said, it's like unconscious.
well, that's what it is. It's like, what you did, I think, is like saying, just pay attention to what you're saying and what you're reading and what you're surrounding yourself with. And just kind of think about it. It's like, I'm not asking, you to just totally change your habits, but just be conscious of what you're doing and how that can affect, the larger sphere, right?
Yeah. And I think it's tricky because I notice a pattern for even like, I see this sometimes with like Gabino's work. where like, well, it's not horror because,
Mm.
or, with, it's just interesting the authors who people want to say that this isn't horror and to just pay attention to why there feels to be such a need
Mm-hmm.
to edge those works out of the genre and just to be conscious, just to watch for it and be conscious of it. Cause I notice it a lot with my work, but I also pay attention with other people and the
Mm-hmm.
patterns that I see of who are you saying doesn't belong here and why. And
Yeah.
a lot of the times it's not malicious and it's like very well intentioned and it's supposed to be fun, but like we have to think about the repercussions of doing that of
Right.
saying like, and also what's the difference between cozy and relatable?
Right. Right.
And like certain things like that, I think we just need to pay attention to and um like just be very it's hard because I think, there's certain works that we connect with on different levels and like it's a taste thing. But if your
Well,
taste, you have to kind of think about I feel very strongly with this for Such Sharp Teeth because, and you brought up Stephanie on Books in the Freezer, and I also want to shout out who's amazing, and Agatha Andrews as well, because I went on a bunch of different podcasts for Such Sharp Teeth and did a bunch of different interviews with very intelligent, awesome dudes. And then I go on Agatha's podcast, and she was the first person to bring up the fact that Such Sharp Teeth is about sexual assault and
mm,
body trauma. And I started to cry because I was like,
you, mm-hmm.
I had like been like, okay, no one's gonna. I put this like this book was me processing my trauma, and like no one saw it until she
A
did
woman. Yeah.
and validated that this book wasn't just like about a mad girl
Mm-hmm.
and about like who she has a romantic interest. Like Agatha saw the subtext of
Mm-hmm.
the relationship with Ian wasn't just for me to be like, ooh, girly, like they're gonna kiss. It was
Mm-hmm.
doing work. It was doing character work. And to be validated in that way allowed me to keep writing and growing as a writer.
That's
And
awesome.
and I think what it is to continue down this path, it's like death by a thousand cuts.
Sure.
And that's why I think I wanted to bring up the language thing because it hurts every time.
Mm.
Like every time
Well,
someone calls Such Sharp Teeth cute, like
mm-hmm.
it's okay. Like it's hard because I understand why. And like, and part of me is like, I hope you don't get it. Like, I hope you don't relate to this book at all.
Yeah.
But it also feels like, I think generally there's still a lot of, and we'll get into this with Play Nice. There's so much internalized misogyny still, I'm continuing to exercise that demon. I'm a child of the 90s. Like I'm but there's so much of it on such a subconscious level that like I think people assume works by women do not have literary merit, which I mean, there's no men's fiction, but there's women's fiction. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
this like,
Sure.
and so it's just worth, I'm not particularly articulate about the subject. I don't really know. And like, there's so much nuance to it. And I never want to hurt anyone's feelings or make
Mm-hmm.
anyone feel like they're doing anything wrong. All I want to do is raise my hand and say,
Yeah.
like, let's take a beat. And like, when we write a review, think about the language. Or if we don't connect to a book, be like, okay, did I not connect to it because it's not my experience? And like,
Yeah.
what would happen? Like, put yourself in the shoes of the protagonist, or just give it a little bit extra thought of
Yeah.
like what's this perspective that like maybe I can't connect with, and so I'm not fully appreciating, and what would happen if I just sat in that character's headspace or this author's headspace for a little bit longer and tried to give them the same the same treatment as somebody who looks like me or
Yeah.
talks like me or has my same experience. And it's something we should all be doing.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that that we're continuing to like stop and think, because the world moves at such a fast pace and there's so much going on and everything is falling apart. But that's a small way that we can contribute to making our literary community better and have it thrive.
Well, that makes me think of two things. One one, and I am, I know you are too. I'm a huge Paul Tremblay fan, but no one's
He's the best.
questioning whether Disappearance at Devil's Rock is a horror novel. But when you look at it, it isn't, in the sense of like, oh, the supernatural and all that kind of stuff. It's horrific because a child disappearing, all of the things around it are horrific. But we don't have that conversation around a book like that, I think because of who wrote it. When someone like Gabino or some of these other books, we do. And it's like, again, it's just a quick why aren't you? When I would say they're both just absolutely horror.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I noticed when you were saying, you were like, I'm not particularly articulate about it. And it just makes me think, would a white male author say, oh, I'm not particularly articulate about it? It's like this still internalized apology for having your thoughts. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think as a person that has like severe social anxiety and stuff, like I totally get it. But I think, it's funny that when you kind of talked about that internalized misogyny and that sort of like apologizing for your voice, even when you feel strongly about it and, feel that you're right. It's still like there's always that feeling that you have to do something like that. I'm not saying you were doing that at that moment.
No, I probably was. I think more importantly for me is I wanted to be, I don't want, and a few people responded to my thread with being like, Rachel's awesome, which I appreciate. Thank you very
Mhm.
much. My ego loves it. But I don't want the conversation to be centered around me. I'm not like, I love to complain, but I would never, like, I complain on my, like, that's what the group chat is for.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to be like, this should be a conversation and this should be something we should pay attention to. It's less like, I am not trying to be like, I know everything about the
Yeah.
subject. And like, I have, we all have spots that we like are oblivious to because of we have the ignorance of experience. So it's more me being aware of that and just not trying to be like, I'm mad and like everybody pay attention to me and listen to me because I want to hear what other people have to say about it. And
Yeah.
again, it's a nuanced conversation and like I think I want to start it, but like I don't want to. I'm not in charge of it. Like,
Right.
You
and I
want
don't
it
want to
an
be in
actual
charge.
conversation and
Right.
not like, a lesson that is being taught.
Right. Yeah. I'm not saying like I'm talking about this because I'm the expert. I'm
Right.
saying like this is what I've noticed for myself and I think, it's been sort of under my skin for a really long time and I think it's coming to the surface now because in having to promote Play Nice and talk about this book, I'm sort of like the book is really about like why women who are deemed like unlikable aren't deserving of empathy or
Mm.
like women have to act a certain way or fit a certain mold just to be taken seriously or respected and they have to look a certain way and talk a certain way
Yep.
and behave a certain way and when
Yep.
they don't do that everything falls apart,
Well,
which was like very much formed by like me coming of age and being like a preteen in the aughts where the tabloid culture was so
Mhm.
horrific and
mhm.
sort of
And like Jessica
noticing
Simpson was like, oh,
yeah
she's so fat. And you're like, the hell
all
she
of
was?
this. I was like looking at tabloid covers for an essay I was writing last week and so I was just like but that's what Play Nice is about and sort of watching the like getting I don't look at reviews and I don't want to know but like some of the early feedback like if I get tagged in a review on Instagram I'll look at it and people being like hating on Cleo and being like she was so unlikable and it's like oh god that's the point like the point is you're
Okay,
she's
let's get into
she's a
it.
complicated she's a character with traits that women
Wish
are
they had.
no
Sorry.
she's a character with traits that like she's selfish she is like very self-confident she's promiscuous she's mean she like is like the star of her own show
Mm,
those are things that like women are not allowed to be because they're so easily like hated and judged for it and
Mhm.
considered like
you're conditioned early
how
on. Let's not
fucking
do
dare
this. Let's
she
not behave
Yep.
like this.
yeah, and she does, and that but she's also, like, very talented.
Mhm.
She also, like, will show up for people, and she's also
Mhm.
dealing with, like, profound grief and trauma. The fact that, like, I wanted her to be challenging. I wanted people to be frustrated with her,
Mhm.
but, like, she's not murdering anybody. She's not an awful person.
No.
So I think, like, that's sort of, like, me having a little bit of, like, it's kind of I wrote a book that is triggering for myself, I guess, because I'm just like, this is what I was trying to confront and
Yeah.
it's still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just want to circle back to what you were saying, and then I'll jump into Cleo. So originally this podcast was supposed to be like, hold up, am I a horror reader, right? And the reason was because I was reading horror, but I didn't know that. And that's because everything I was reading was labeled literary fiction.
Women's fiction,
Yeah, all that
historical fiction,
stuff.
whatever. Yeah.
And so a big part of this discussion, like Adam and I were having like hour-long discussions on things. And I was like, but then why? Like, why is this in the horror section, but this isn't? And he's like, well, I think that, the author gets to say some of what they feel that they write. But what's the first genre that we can market it into? And like, what is, award can it win? And then, we think back to like bookstores in the 90s and early 2000s. It's like, it was driven by, essentially like a formula or, a marketing plan, right? Which there's no harm in that. But we were talking, yesterday, and whenever this comes out, we were talking with someone who is like a GM of a large bookstore chain. And they were saying like they're kind of baffled now that it's being more driven by creators and consumers, and the companies are getting more feedback than they've ever gotten in the past. So I am genuinely hopeful that some of this is going to change, because it truly like pisses me off to walk into a bookstore and I'm like, but these are good works. Like, it makes me mad that horror readers are missing out on these other books, and these other books are by horror writers are being missed out on because it's not this stereotype of what people think it is, right? It's not this like, it's not all stab, stab, stab and, occult types, there's so much and so different. And so I'm hopeful that these things are changing. And I think if you don't say it, Rachel, like, who else is going to say it? Like, you're beloved, you are an authority in the space, and you have 6 books. You are female, and simply by that, you deserve to be able to say it. And I think that raising your hand, having the discussion, it's kind of like, watch the thoughts that are coming across. Let's be less unconscious, and let's strip out some of this like conditioning societally or even within the book space to say it. And when you say those words, like, there might be absolutely no malice by saying relatable or cozy. It's just what the industry term has been for years and years and years. It's like, let's use these descriptors because from a marketing stance, this is what our women are looking for. This is what readers are looking for. These words will pop out to them. But we need to change that. There's a ton of other words within the English language that we could use to describe these things. And we don't have to be like, she's a girl boss. She's just a boss, she's just a writer. And I think a lot of this is, having to constantly fight against misogyny and being in like a man's world for that. And I'm not going to apologize for feeling that way of like, it's just men have always been able to do everything. It's always acceptable. Even like I was reading this book, The Blue Bottle Tree, the other day, and in the story, the guy's like a preacher, and he's like, yeah, you're going to need to cook for me. You need to clean for me. You need to stand right by my side. And this like in the like 60s, 70s. Prepare for this. I like my meat like this. I like this like that. And it was just like, you're going to be trained up to learn how to like be a wife, to be, like take care of a man. And it's just like, it's so gross. And it's like, we're our own beings and our own minds and our own human entities capable. Like, you're here because a woman brought you into the world, and like, put some respect on the name, put some respect on the fact that women are powerful. And like, there's that saying that the man might be the head, but the woman turns the neck. And it's like, there's always, behind every powerful man. I'm heated about it. And some of my friends are going through some serious shit with men right now. And I'm like, I'm coming of rage, both with perimenopause and just with, I'm so tired of it. It's just, it's gross. And so it all feeds into here of like, from consumerism to the language being told to the playing nice. And like, honestly, like I said, like, I'm over 100 pages in. I hear you describing Cleo, but unless she turns into some like tremendous asshole, I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. Like, she would be my friend. I would be like, good for you. Cleo seems like she has a confidence, an ability to just know what she likes, what she wants. She's, not like, what's the word? Like her sisters try to like really talk her into something. And she's like, no, that's not right for me. And like, I am enjoying her. Like, please write more characters like this.
I think I agree with everything you said. And it's funny because like, I'm just thinking back to last week, and I was like looking at those tabloid covers, and I don't know why, I like was looking for trash TV and I couldn't find anything that I was wanting to watch. And I ended up turning on Shiny Happy People, the like Duggar
Oh
family
God, yeah.
documentary. So I like, what the was I thinking where I was like, I'm going to look at like tabloid covers from 2003 and watch this Duggar documentary, and we're going to see what cocktail of emotions comes out, because and then also the whole Sydney Sweeney Good Genes ad, which
Yeah.
like,
Girl.
I think there's also like is bad on multiple levels, but I think
Mhm.
what I'm seeing is this sort of like backsliding into, because I'm like looking at all of these tabloids, this sort of like backsliding into that era. And also with like, you know, I think diet culture is shifting and taking steps back. And like I am noticing and like watching the Duggar documentary, this like rise in Christian nationalism.
Oh yeah.
And like there was this like young YouTube couple who are like hateful and awful, and we're just like, what's so scary about the term submissive? And I think there's this
A lot.
A
real
lot.
they're you know, and they're trying to like ban birth control. There's a real backsliding
Yeah.
into the culture that we
Oh my God, they're
we
like
worked so
literally
hard to
trying
get
have
away
people
from.
have more babies. Like that's
Right.
the thing. It's like,
So
please reproduce.
and just, you know, and the shaming and the like thin white blonde woman being the epitome of like
Ugh.
trying to become the beauty standard again, and just like kind of all of these things that like to me culturally I'm just like, we got to be careful, because I think we're going back to this place
Sure.
that like I wrote this book trying to process the
Uh-huh.
emotions of being raised in that environment.
Mhm.
And like there's a lot of good dudes out there. I think it's
Sure.
like
Like we're
again,
not,
it's a nuanced conversation,
yeah,
and I
we're not
worry about
labeling everything as all of this. It is a spectrum of it.
I
But
think
the
that
ones
the
that
issue,
stick
yeah.
out so obscenely, we want to talk about them.
Yeah, and I think that that's the problem, is that that other side, whatever you want to call it, the Christian national, the people that want to create these beauty standards, they see everything as either evil or good, right? Like they see that everything is just a strict binary. And you know, the problem that sometimes the people that see things as nuanced do see it as nuanced, and we want to have a nuanced conversation with people that refuse to do that. And I think that
yeah.
that might be why we are backsliding, because we are the ones with empathy and want to understand where they're coming from. And like, I think especially right now in this period that we find ourselves, it's like, but you're coming from a place of evil. It's kind of like, okay, there is that on that side. It's interesting when it comes to the conversations about Cleo specifically. I look at all three of these sisters, and all three of them are sort of not falling into the places that, you know, quote marks, however you want to say it, traditionally women find themselves, right? So
Mhm.
all three of the sisters are strong. They're not, you know, submissive. They're not any of those things. And obviously they come against each other because they're basically all alphas. And that's where some of the really interesting, you know, confrontations and disagreements and things that happen, you know, within the sisters in this book come. But you know, you kind of shared with us at Books and Brews that someone was like, all of these characters are horrible. And it's like, no, all of these characters aren't doing what you think a woman should do. And that's why you don't like them.
Yeah, they're not behaving the way that people want them to behave, or maybe
Right.
they personally find them unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think unlikability is such a slippery thing, because largely the media decides who's likable or not. We see this with Meghan Markle is a good example.
Right.
Chappell Roan is a good example of women where we're kind of figuring out if we like them or not, because that's going to determine how we treat them.
With
And I
the
find that
talked about. Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's especially with Duchess Meghan, where it's like, as soon as the media turned on her, then everybody was like full of rage and just ready to be like, fuck her and her jam.
Yep.
Like, it was so interesting where it's like, okay, well, why are you were waiting for permission to treat her like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that I'm very aware of that. And that's something that I was trying to do with Cleo, which is like, she's an influencer for mainly because of the idea of perception that I'm dealing with in the book, but also because it's like, I dare you to judge her. I
Mm-hmm.
dare you to judge her for like some of her behavior with like Austin, who's the neighbor who
Yeah.
she meets. But like I'm daring the reader to be like, oh, you don't like her? Why?
Like, let's
Because
look at even
she's
that first chapter that you've read a couple
right.
times now, where it's like, okay, people finish that chapter, and what do you think? Because that guy is a dick too,
Yeah.
and none of the blame for this, whatever you want to call it, that happens, which ends like with Cleo basically saying, "No, I don't want you to come with me."
I changed my mind.
Yeah,
Like I'm
and
allowed to
even
change my mind.
and I think that like people are like, "Oh, but he was worried about the phone call and all this kind of stuff." It's like, but yeah, but he was still going to go home with her. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's like
he
he's
wanted to get
still,
laid.
yeah, he is not, he is no saint, one. And then like the fact that he keeps coming back and like he has been there before. It's like he's just constantly like this, he is just as bad, but people are saying, "Oh, Cleo's an asshole," right? It's
Yeah,
like,
you know
why?
he wouldn't
Why?
call her as soon as he gets
Yeah,
what he wants,
exactly. Yeah, and he would avoid her at the next party and all that. It's like, and everyone knows that reading it, but still they come across like, wow, Cleo's a lot,
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think like I am just nervous, I think, and a little bit more again, like I've discovered I wrote a book that I find people's response too triggering. So I don't know how to navigate
I
that
think that
really.
shows that you succeeded for one thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
'cause you obviously did set out what you meant to do, but what you meant to do is going to piss you off.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, I like too how like Cleo is, you play with a little bit of like her like bisexuality and just, I feel like you're bringing some of that in of like what the family would want. And, it feels a little bit like she's just a woman. Like you have a line in here and I'm going to find it that I underlined, pause, but I was laughing. Um, Adam can edit this out here,
mhm.
this dead space, but it made me think about it. But it's the line you wrote about, could it make me come? I was like, yeah.
Oh,
Oh my
designer
God.
sweatpants. Yes.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah,
Everybody has been bringing out, you're the second, like
but like
today, you're the second person
seriously
to bring that
though,
up to me. I'm like, these men out here in these sweatpants are an epidemic. These designer sweatpants, like the
I'm
fact that
telling you, I
everybody
was
has
like,
responded to this
Yeah.
is crazy.
he,
I think it's the type of
I was
person
like,
that
she
will
fucking
spend
nailed it,
$250 on a pair of sweatpants. There's something.
but have no
Yeah.
fucking substance to
Yeah.
them. And these are the people that,
Overcompensating for something. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So I was like, yep, that's relatable.
I was looking down at my Air Force Ones reading if he had
Sorry.
Nikes on. I'm like,
But do you
fair
have
enough.
designer sweatpants?
I do not. That is
No,
true.
Then you're
Well,
good. It's the
he wants me to
combination of
kid
the two.
himself.
Okay.
We can't be spending money like that.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm so kidding. But no, I mean, the one thing I will say is like, I have a very good husband. Okay. He's still a man, but I didn't always have a good husband and I went through some significant shit. And but now like Adam's like, I like that you're feisty. Like
Mhm.
I am a very feisty, and sometimes when I'm like giving him what for, it goes the opposite way where he's like, yeah, fine. Just like, and I'm like, no, I'm mad right now. And he's like, I like that you're feisty. And it's
Yeah.
like, but a lot of men are not going to feel that way. They're like, how dare you? And I don't ever intend to be too little, right?
Mhm.
I'm always going to be too much. And I choose to stay married and be with him because I like him and I want to, not because I have to be. Like that's a choice. And I just feel like I'm happy that I'm at this point in my life where I don't have to, I'm not seeking a man's approval or permission. And I find that like there are women that, they're still so driven by it and they're still so unconscious of, what they're doing and what they're choosing. Even it hurts me to like, women I think often like are the gatekeepers themselves to other women to like keep them more in line. Like men started out, men have formed it, but women are the police officers because there are some women that they don't want good for other women. They don't want them to translate. And whether that's like, I think I was telling you about that book at Books and Brews, the Jesus and John Wayne, it's like, it is evident the amount of that we would not be where we're at in electing the people that we are right now without the help of women saying, stay in line.
Oh God. I mean, I find that's very true. And
Well, real quick, my
never
friend
want
the
to,
other
and I
day
think that's why the
goes,
conversation about like me being like, where people are just like, I think I'm very careful about what I say and how I say it because, like, I want to bring men into the conversation and not like, don't get me wrong. I'm like, some dudes have done me dirty. Some dudes have done my friends dirty. But like, in the conversations about like, just to bring up what we were saying earlier in the conversations about like language and how we speak about other people's work, that's for everyone. I'm not just looking at men being like, you better post the top 10 books by women writers on your Instagram next week or else. It's for everyone. It's for everyone. And I like, if just dudes are trying to pick up that slack, it's not going to work.
No.
We all do need to. And so, yeah, I think sometimes the response from women about my work is full of more vitriol than men because we are so conditioned to hate ourselves. And if we didn't hate ourselves, industries would collapse.
Oh my God. Exactly.
So we have to
end that because I'm like, I watched this TikTok yesterday and it's stitched, meaning like it's an original creator and then someone jumps in and she's like, it's this young girl and she's like, I just really believe that women that aren't fit, they don't deserve to be loved and have partners. And it's like, what the and so it's like stitched by this woman and she's like, honey, sit down at my table. Like I have many things to tell you. And she just like reads her to filth and it's awesome. But she's just like women with curves and women that have had children and women that haven't had children and women that have aged and she just goes into how wrong this is. And it was wonderful, but I still keep thinking about how did this girl, this original creator, what the hell has she been through in her life that she feels like your body size determines whether you're lovable or enough? That to the point that you're embarrassing yourself by putting out content like this. And I feel bad for her.
It's conditioning and it's like pick me and it's like, it's sad, but like, yeah, a lot of it. I mean, that's
the worst thing about you. Like, great, because like, thank you.
But we're taught from, and this will be a good transition into perception. I was talking about likability and if that determines how women are treated, but I think really, and it's perception. And that's what I wanted to, when I came up with the idea for Play Nice, there was a few different inspirations. I've talked about Amityville, which is a huge one, but thinking about, and I say like how the media treated Britney Spears, but really I'm talking about the whole, Y2K tabloid era, which, I was, those are my transition into womanhood was marred by that. Yeah. So, you're standing in line at the grocery store and all you see is too fat, too skinny, slutty, can't keep a man, having a breakdown. So really what that taught me was that how we are perceived as women, how we look, how we act, that is going to determine how we are treated by society and if we are worthy of empathy, compassion, whatever. And unfortunately, the rest of my life has just continued to prove that to be true. If I leave the house in full makeup, hair done, how I'm treated and perceived is going to be different than if and I mean, that's kind of true for everybody. That's true for men as well. But I think women can be, if you are not attractive, you are invisible and not worthy of respect. So thinking about this in the lens of the crazy woman aspect of the haunted house trope. That's why I wrote a haunted house book to kind of deconstruct that crazy woman trope and like who is worthy of empathy and the danger that we have if we are crazy, are mad, are unattractive. And for Cleo, she grew up seeing her mother lose control of her image and lose control of her life. And so image is everything to Cleo. And that's why she's an influencer. That's why she's a stylist. That's why she's a fashionista. That's why she's superficial in this way. Not because, I mean, maybe that's inherently who she is and, good for her. Like I was born girly, like I was 2 years old, like pink. But like she is hyper aware of the fact that if she does not keep a tight hold on how she looks and how she is perceived by the public, she could lose everything. And so I think it's very interesting and unfortunately very true to life. And it's also kind of sad. That's why I think I get a little bit like hurt when people are unkind to Cleo, because it's like, can't you see like,
Yeah.
She's
can't you
hurting.
see the like why she is the way
Yes.
she is?
You have a line in there where you're like, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take bucolic, like a bucolic Instagram feed. And so I was like, that's a really interesting word choice. And so I like talking about it with Adam, and it's like it's damn near perfect, or like,
Mhm.
especially in a
Like the
suburban
suburban,
sense,
yeah.
and just like curated. And I'm like, that is Cleo, right? She is like a curated Instagram feed herself, personified, yes?
Yeah. That's what she presents to the world, because she knows like this is, and I think
Acceptable. It'll be followed, it'll be wanted.
there's a line early in the book where she says like, sometimes I think that how I'm perceived is all that matters, and like sometimes I know it is. And like that's her truth. That's a lot of our truth, where it's like,
Mhm.
well, and even,
I'm
we
only
were
good if a
talking,
man says I am.
well, I'm only
Or
good if
people do.
people
Yeah,
like me, because
yeah.
the
Or
women
women.
will attack her too.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Or women, yeah.
So, like Adam, as you were saying earlier about feeling the need to apologize, I think there's this idea of like, as soon as you're angry, people stop listening because nobody wants to hear
Mm.
an angry woman. So like that's kind of what Such Sharp Teeth was about, like the angry woman. And then Play Nice is about the crazy woman. There's a line later in the book that's like crazy as quicksand, because as soon as somebody calls you crazy, then they can stop listening to you. And
And when
everything
you
you
get
say and
called
do.
crazy, you kind of it creates a sort of emotional response in you that kind of sends you further into that quicksand sometimes.
Exactly. And that's the whole book within a book.
Yeah.
Cleo's mom, Alexandra, that's her whole plight.
Mm.
As soon as someone calls you crazy, what do you do?
Yeah.
Everything you say and do is crazy. And if
Yeah.
you get upset, then that's anything you do is you can and will be used against you.
Yeah.
In a court of public opinion
Yeah.
law.
Yeah.
And I think that it's funny because there is a male character, not to spoil anything about who this character is, but there's a male character that kind of it's the opposite. When he gets the angrier he gets, the more he expects to be listened to, and I think that
Yep.
that's sort of like in general the way it works with men in power, or it's believed that they're in power. Like if they're questioned, you just get angrier and angrier and angrier until
And that's
everyone else shuts up.
authority. If
Yeah.
you're an angry man, you're
Yeah.
authoritative. If you're an
Right.
angry woman, everybody wants anything to do with you.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this in terms of your sort of all of your main characters throughout your backlist, and it's sort of like and Cleo goes through her own journey, but in a certain way, Annie, Rory, and Sloane especially end their books where Chloe starts here, right? With the self-confidence and with, sort of being in their power in a way that Cleo is. Now, obviously, there's reasons for the way that Cleo acts like she does. And I think that those characters have gone through something different in order to reach that place. But I would wonder if their stories started at the end of what we have right now, would they be considered unlikable because they have confidence, because they have that power in themselves? And like, it just is very interesting to me that like, we're okay with that journey from, whether it's meek or, a lack of ego, those kinds of things. And we understand like that person is hurting. Annie's been through this terrible breakup. Sloane is just stuck in this loveless, horrible marriage, all these kinds of things. It's like at the end of that book, they're all kind of like almost a Cleo in a way. And like I just wonder, it's like we're happy for them. Why are we not happy for Cleo when that's who she is kind of innately?
I think Rory has a lot of confidence. She just has
Mhm.
issues being vulnerable, and
Yeah.
she's angry. It's about letting go of the anger. And once she kind of lets go of the anger, then we're like, phew, good. Mia is still angry, so she's kind of and
Mhm.
I love that character. I love a villain with a point.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do think it's interesting. And it's funny how like Vesper kind of gets a pass.
Right.
And I wonder why that is. Maybe because she's not she's not confident in herself.
Yeah.
She's just kind of sarcastic. And I wonder if it's the confidence that people have the issue with.
Yeah.
And that would be interesting to me. Like at some
Yeah.
point, it's like if I were able to like separate my emotion out of it and just be like an observer and like come in with like like an anthropologist, it would be interesting to me. But instead, I'm just like, my feelings hurt.
Well, it's funny because all three of those characters too, hopefully it's far enough away and, it says it on the books, what type of books they are. But they are traditional folklore or just thought of as monsters at the end, right?
Right.
They're now a witch, a werewolf, and a vampire, right? But they're good and we like them and we're happy for them in that place that they're in, And
Yeah.
it's just an interesting thing that those are labeled in certain ways. Whereas Cleo, is not. And, a lot of that has to do with sort of the traumas and those different things. But to sort of move on to another thing here, I just wanted to ask, like, when you were writing this book, were you like, I want to scare the fuck out of people? Like,
Yeah, because I'm
I'm not
there.
playing around this time. Like, I want to create these scenes because, like, for
And it
me,
starts early. Like,
Yeah.
there's a scene where she's like, "Oh, I could feel something licking at the back of my neck." And I'm like, "Ah!"
it's like this is a truly scary book, and you've had other things like that have been really scary too, but I think that overall the atmosphere of this book is frightening and people are going to go into this and come out of it afraid, and that's wonderful and great. Was that
Listen,
your intention?
she's coming for you. She's coming for you.
Were you like, you know what, I've heard all of this shit, it's like, fuck you, I'm gonna make you afraid of a smiley face, asshole.
But you know that part where in Key and Peele where Rachel's like all polite right now, and then like there's Luther is the anger translator. That's me and Adam. We're just gonna say the terrible thing,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Yep.
no, I'm trying to,
No, I.
I'm trying to be like diplomatic. We're like, no, she's fucking,
What she means by that is fuck you. And
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yes, let us translate.
I think the minute you sit down and try and scare people, you
Mhm.
fail. I kind of was at that place with Black Sheep, and I was like, "Well, you think I can't write a fucking scary book? I'm gonna
Yeah,
write a
get
fucking
into it.
dark and scary book." And then I started to I made an outline, and I wrote the book based on the outline, and it came out so shitty. Like it just like had no heart. There was nothing there, and I think it's because I was coming from a place of like not organically creating
Mhm.
art, but like on the like playing defense or
Yeah.
something. Like it just
Man,
it didn't
that's a
work.
great way to put it.
Yeah.
And
Your
it
point
like
was to do something to the audience, not to tell the story.
not to tell a story exactly. And so I had to scrap it and start
Right.
over. And like luckily I did because I think the book was all the better for it. With this book, and I learned from that experience to like just write the book let the book be what it's gonna be and write the best book possible, not the scariest book possible because I'm
Mhm.
got a chip on my shoulder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I sat down to write this book, I think just the subject matter allowed for me to kind of go places that I hadn't gone places in the past, especially the book within a book structure, because I got to play around a little bit with like all my books need to be grounded in reality or else nothing works. Like it all falls apart. Like
Right.
I need it to feel real. So any parts that aren't real, that are supernatural can have that much more power and that much more weight. And with the book within a book, it's an Amityville style book. So it's a little bit campy. We don't know if what happened in the book really happened or not. And so I could kind of be extra and very hammy about what was going on and like get a little scary and freaky. And I think organically, this book allowed me the opportunity to write that way. And it's not like, and I am satisfied by it because I'm just like, it's not that I can't, it's that I'm I'm like giving you all fucking mercy.
Yeah.
Like, don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
So it is satisfying that I got the chance to write a scary book, but I didn't like sit down being like, all right, fuckers. Like I sat down being like, how do I write the best book possible?
Yeah.
And then it just sort of allowed for it.
And one of my favorite things with that book within the book is that it's like an annotated book within a book,
I was saying
some
that, Rachel. I
others. Yeah.
love this format.
But I think that I love that, it is that Amityville style. I'm questioning what's real, what's not, in this book that she's written. But then you look at the annotations, and the annotations almost always are like, yeah, it was much worse than this, right? It's like, which I just think like is even, scarier in a way that it's like she actually toned things down for the book when you're thinking, oh, this is horrific, right?
Yeah.
Well, I prepared a little quote from earlier for today. I felt it was appropriate for you, but creativity is what happens when your trauma stops cock blocking your aura. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Unapologetically authentic creative era, right?
That's
like
amazing.
And I feel like, I love to use the word fuckers. Like, so the
Mhm.
fact that you're saying that, it's like for all the fuckers, female or male
Yeah.
or non-binary,
Mm-hmm.
like
You can all
whatever.
be a fucker.
If you're a human being and you're fucking perpetuating this, you can, this is for you.
I love that.
I just have so much fun reading your stuff. I couldn't believe I shouldn't say I couldn't believe, but the amount of people every time we see you at an event that are just like, oh my God, it's Rachel. And then you
I
said,
don't think that's true.
girl,
That's
I'm
it. We're
telling
recording
you,
them next time.
I'm telling you,
We're
listen.
gonna make you a compilation.
And then you're like, oh, I heard you guys started a podcast. We're like, yeah. And you're like, I was like, I mean, you can like come on it if you want to. And
I saw
And you're
that you
like-
made it and I got mad. I was like, they have
and you're
not
like-
asked me yet? How
yeah.
dare?
And I was like, oh my God, we would never ask you.
I know. You're so busy. You got it's like
Yeah. And you just like never, like, it's clear to me, like, you never think of like, but everyone reveres you.
Yes.
And we thank
And they
you
should.
for what, and we thank
So
you for
they
what
say.
you're doing. And I told you that, like, I told you about my friend, we'll call her Lynette,
Yes.
and
And her
she,
meatloaf.
and her meatloaf situation. And it just, I sent her a picture of you autographing the book, and she was just like, this
Start
means,
crying. Yeah.
yeah, it just means everything to her. And then she sent that picture to her mom and was like, thank you. Like, Miha, I'm so glad that like you have like all these friends that are loving you and taking care of you. And like your work is therapeutic for like women and men,
Mhm.
because it can happen both ways. But I genuinely mean it. Like, if you listen to this podcast, the number of people are like, we're like, who would you recommend? Oh, Rachel Harrison. So it's like, please get a big head. No,
Yeah.
just kidding. But the one thing I wanted to touch on that, Adam, when he said he's like, first of all, Adam's always like super humble. And I always like, nope, I'm going to say it.
What?
That you have a master's degree in
Oh.
like English language and literature, and you've read damn near every like Russian, English, and American literature classic. So like when you say you love her books, like this isn't coming from like, this is so good, like bro style. No, this
Well,
is
no,
like,
I know because of how he talks about them. That
yeah, and he like
knows his
he's
shit.
read a lot of classic works, and I think is selecting authors that he stands because the content and the merit is there. But you were the first person, so like that when he like we both really like started like, I mean, I once I was able to concentrate and start reading again. Adam's like, I have to go meet her. Like, do you want to go with me? And I was like, no, like I wasn't comfortable at this point. I was like straight up like, I am so awkward. I can't do
Yeah.
these things. And you drove like an hour and a half, like
Mhm.
after a school day, and just like drove to another state, and you were so excited to meet her. And then you brought her this little figure, and I just wanted you guys to share this little story.
Oh, the little
Oh
guy.
my gosh. I will talk about it. So last year was a bit of a rough year for me, and I was on my first ever book tour for So Thirsty. And like I was alone in like I had to take a train down to DC and then like an hour Uber to Frederick, Maryland?
Yeah,
It's not Frederick's, but okay. And I like was just like wandering around this it's a cute little town. I love a cute little town.
Yeah.
Very much.
Not derogatory little.
No.
I'm like, how dare anyone describe it? It's cute little. It's a beautiful historic town. But it was a great event. And then after Yeah, Curious Iguana, and met Adam, very sweet, gave me a gift, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I went back to my hotel room and I opened it and I just started like sobbing because it was so thoughtful. There was like a Mitski sticker in there. There was Twilight Zone, stories from the Twilight Zone, and there was the gremlin figurine from the Twilight Zone, the gremlin on the wing, and what Nightmare at 30,000 Feet, I think the episode's called. And I was just like, it's crazy that I'm like actually connecting with people and that people like see me on a human level. And I carried that gremlin with me through every trip that I took the rest of the fall. And I carry it with me now on every time I fly.
I love it.
Every time I like take a long trip. And it's just like, it's a comfort. It's like such a comfort to me.
I will say this. We've recorded so many podcasts, which I'm so grateful for, but I've had this whole like moment of like, what if people don't like me? And I'm like, well, fuck them. Mostly because I'm like, I'm so tired of like, what if they're like, oh, Adam's so nice. He's so sweet. I'm like, he's a human being. Like he does dickish things,
Absolutely.
and like, I don't
Probably later today.
absolutely. It's coming. And, but like, I guess what I'm saying is like, I didn't start this to like, I'm not out here to necessarily be liked or not liked, right? It's just like, I want to spread the word, and the goal is for me to get more people at a state of zen of reading and their nervous systems like realigned and connecting with literature that is going to benefit them and their lives regardless of the title associated with them, or label I should say. And I just want to support people that are, essentially, as an author, you are a small business owner, and livelihoods and art and projects that they've birthed. And at the end of the day, I want to be myself, and whoever stays stays and who doesn't. But it's like, I can only imagine on a level that you're at with the amount of everyone having a fucking opinion, how difficult. I'm like glad that you don't read everything. Like, you'll offer it and you'll read it if you're tagged in it. But at the end of the day, like, do you have to like have a shield up all the time? Is like that where you're at? Is that where you're living?
I try not to. There's been times in the past couple months where I'm like, I gotta close these DMs. But like, I like to relate to people and I like to meet people, and I wouldn't get to form relationships if I were to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And people are gonna be weird no matter what. Like, people are
Yeah.
gonna be weird. And like, I think the biggest favor I ever did myself was to like understand that it's okay to fuck up. And I like grew up in an environment and in an era that was very like, if you make a mistake, somebody's going to be mad. And so I carried that with me into my early adulthood, where I would get very defensive about things. And once I was able to like understand that, like, well, yeah, I am going to make mistakes and that's okay. And kind of like be able to be self-aware. Self-awareness is my favorite quality in other people. And I'm very, very, I like to think, I mean, no matter what, like, there are things that we cannot see, but I'm very analytical and I'm very self-aware, and like, I'm very up for like, let's talk about it. Like,
Self-evaluation,
yeah.
right?
And in interpersonal relationships, I'm very like, how are you feeling? Let's talk about like, what's like, my feelings are going to get hurt no matter what because I'm a sensitive person, but like, I'm open to having, I think, giving myself permission to be like, it's okay to fuck up made me more
Yeah.
confident.
Yeah.
Because just like, yeah, I'm going to make mistakes. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Doesn't mean this, doesn't mean that, doesn't mean XYZ. And so once I was able to get to a level of like, I'm comfortable with myself, like, I don't feel like as much pressure to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit easier for me to like tune out the noise, but like, I still am and will always be a sensitive person. And in that regard, it is kind of hard to be like public facing, I guess. And also, I think more so than that, just what I was trying to unpack in Play Nice, this idea of perception and like how much of me playing dress up on tour is because I like to, and how much is me like being super worried that people are judging the way I look or the way I talk, or, my body or XYZ. Like that, I think added pressure can be a lot. So yeah, and then I think just wanting to be taken seriously, and the finding the balance between like, I want to be taken seriously as an artist, but like, I also don't take myself seriously. Like, I like to joke around. I'm pretty self-deprecating, like, and where that line is, like, I'm still kind of figuring it out. But that's also like kind of the fun of being alive, is to be like, let's figure out what we like, what we don't like,
Yeah.
how we want to be, how we behave, what's
Yeah.
working for us, what's not working for us. So
I read this quote earlier. I think it was yesterday. It was like, if you're not failing or you're not making mistakes, then you're not making decisions. And I really love the empowerment behind that, right? Because inaction is still an action. And if you're in freeze or you're not making choices, you're not willing. And I personally, being a sales manager, leader, like, I always loved when people on my team failed and messed up, because I think failure is the best way to learn about yourself, what you like. And I think that you become the strongest version of yourself through your failures.
I love it. It's funny. Do you want a sneak preview of my next book?
Hell yeah.
So my next book is called Kiss Slay Replay. It's a time loop horror novel. But there's a line late in the book that says, regret doesn't mean you made a bad decision. It just means that you made a decision.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I think it's important to do things that are scary and that don't feel comfortable. And I
Mhm,
try and remind myself of that if I'm like nervous before a book event, or if,
mhm.
you know, and in any aspect of my life, it's some nerves are good. We don't want to
Yeah,
torture ourselves with anxiety, but
yeah,
a little bit of a little bit of the jitters of
yeah,
challenging ourselves and
yeah,
being like, well, I might fail. Good, cool,
yeah.
awesome. Being a failure means that you're pretty awesome, because people who aren't failures, who have never failed at
They're
anything in
playing
their
it way
lives,
too
have never
safe.
tried. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the courage to even be able to try it, that you even have that. I think a lot of this comes from I played it safe and small for so long, and I just don't wanna live that way anymore, sort of thing, and it's like so I'm very, like I feel very attracted to everything you're talking about today because I'm in the coming of rage stage of perimenopause. I'm watching terrible things happen to my friends, and it feels like it's lodging inside of me. And I want to do something about it. And like, I feel like through all the books that I'm reading now, like I'm almost dreaming literary. Like, I feel like I wake up with a story in my mind and head. And like, I this morning wrote like these thoughts that I had, and I had Adam read them. He's like, this is a really good, like, long form poem of just like rage becomes her for like these things that have been happening to my friends. And it's like, whether it's ever read or ever published, it's for me. And it feels good to do something like that and to just say, no, I'm going to put this out here and step into a creative space that I don't know how it's received. And so, like, for anybody who's listening and that has been thinking about writing or reading a different style, or people always say to me like, "Oh, like I could never wear that." But like you look so good in it. Like I never think to dress and wear these bold colors. I'm always like, I want to wear it makes me happy, and it's just like I don't want to be under the constraints of really anything anymore. So like do it. Live bold, live authentically, write the thing, do what you need to do and like have fun failing at it and finding out what you do and you don't like.
Yeah.
It's my TED
And
talk. It's my therapy
what
talk today. This is, after all, horror therapy hour.
it is. And it's about what I think something I wanted as a takeaway for Play Nice is for people to feel like, to think about perception, and how if you take away this fear of how you will be perceived, if that would change your behavior at all in a way that, or if you feel like you are modifying your behavior in a way that's harmful for you to appease others, or because you're afraid of how people will see you. Like you said with starting this podcast, you were hesitant because you're like, what if no one likes me? But you did it anyway. And I
Mhm.
think that's what I would like for people to read Play Nice, to be like, I'm going to do it anyway because I'm going to do something that, like,
Do it afraid.
I don't care what people think of me.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
don't mean that in a way that, like,
Well,
people can
like,
just be like, I'm going to be a raging dick to everybody.
I'm not that, and
Like,
that's the thing. Like, I'm not though. Like, I am the
no,
first
no, I know
person
you're
to
not, but
ever
I'm
be.
No, like it.
I
Yeah,
am so
if you're
self
worried about it, you're probably not
right,
a raging dick.
but like
It's like
I have spent the
exactly.
majority of my life trying to. I am a highly sensitive person. I am so empathetic. Like, I'll be like, well, clearly I did something wrong. No one harmed me. Like, they wouldn't do this to me if I didn't do something to them. Like, where did I go? You know what I mean? Like, almost to a fault that it's been like,
mhm,
let me abuse my own self, like, of
yeah,
having. And so I think self awareness is huge. I am
mhm.
open to constructive criticism and feedback and things like that. But there's a time and a place and there's a way to do it, and I'm always willing to be like self aware, but I also am not going to sit and stew or worry about what other people tell me is right for me when I live with myself all day. I know what's best for me within reason. If I'm not hurting anyone, if I'm not harm, you know what I mean? Like if I'm not being selfish, like all those things within those parameters, but I know what I like. And I want to do good things for myself. Now, I lived way too long not doing good things, and I'm going to do them now.
I think that Play Nice and So Thirsty both sort of tell that. I mean, all of it's kind of a
Cackle too. I'm
yeah, it
sorry.
kind of
Like,
is a running
Yeah.
theme of that, and I love that, and I think that's why so many people
gravitate. Like they
do
find themselves.
gravitate and
Yeah.
find themselves in it. So, Obviously, Play Nice comes out September 9th, and if
Buy
you're-
this shit right
well,
now.
I'm assuming everyone's pre-ordered it because they're smart, intelligent people. The So Thirsty paperback, is it out already, or is it coming out
It's out August 19th.
August 19th? Okay, so if you
Buy that shit too.
for some strange reason didn't get it in hardback, it is available in paperback as well on August 19th. So we knew it was going to be amazing. It was even more amazing than we thought. Thank you so much, and hopefully you'll come back and visit us anytime you got something to talk about.
Anytime. Literally anytime.
Yes.
Come on anytime you want. If you just want to like horror therapy, but like,
Yeah.
and as these people become more aware and we start changing our language,
Mhm.
should you have a good update or a bad update?
Yeah.
Let's revisit.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
God knows I need the
Wonderful.
therapy. So
well, you enjoy the rest of your day.
you too.
Until next time.
Thank
See ya.
you. Bye.